This tutorial explains the basic structure of the federal and Maryland court systems. It also explains the most common system for publishing the cases decided by these courts. Not all case law is created equal. The value of a particular case will depend on many factors, including the relevance, jurisdiction, and authority of the court issuing the case. You must understand the structure of a court system in order to evaluate the jurisdiction and authority of a case. And understanding the publication system will help you to decipher the important information encoded in a case citation. The most prominent system for publishing cases is West's National Reporter System. The National Reporter System was developed in the late 1800s as a means of gathering the decisions of courts throughout the country in one place. West created a series of reporters, multi-volume sets of books that contain the decisions of a specific court or group of courts. The cases are organized in chronological order, printed, and bound into numbered volumes. The reporters are further organized by series. A series simply indicates that the number of volumes has become too unwieldy, so the volume numbers are starting over. For example, the volume following 999 of the Federal Supplement, the reporter that publishes federal district court cases, is volume 1 of the Federal Supplement Second Series. Even though most case law research is now done online, the citation system for cases still reflects the print origins of the reporter system. A citation consists of the volume number and abbreviation of the reporter and the page number the case starts on. The National Reporter System has a separate reporter for each level of the federal courts: the U.S. Supreme Court, the Federal Circuit Courts of Appeal, and the Federal District Courts. State cases are organized differently. Rather than having a separate reporter for each state, the states are grouped by region, and each regional reporter contains the cases from all of those states. This map shows what states belong in each region. You will notice that Maryland is in the Atlantic region. Its cases are therefore published in the Atlantic Reporter. The federal court system has 3 tiers: the district court, which hears cases at the trial level, an intermediate appellate level called the Federal Circuit Courts of Appeal, and the U.S. Supreme Court. The U.S. Supreme Court is the highest court in the United States. Its decisions are mandatory authority for both federal and state courts. The Supreme Court has discretionary jurisdiction. Except in very limited circumstances, they may choose which cases to hear. Supreme Court decisions are published in many places, but 3 sources are most prominent. United States Reports is the official version of Supreme Court cases. It is published by the federal government and should be cited to if available. West also publishes Supreme Court cases in the Supreme Court Reporter, which is part of the National Reporter System. Lexis publishes its own version of Supreme Court cases in U.S. Supreme Court Cases Lawyers Edition, usually referred to simply as Lawyers Edition. Every Supreme Court case has a citation in each of these 3 services. Citations to the same case are called parallel citations. See the Blue Book for the rules concerning parallel citations. The Circuit Courts of Appeal are the intermediate appellate courts in the federal system. An intermediate court of appeals hears all appeals of trial court decisions. It also acts as a gatekeeper for the highest court of the jurisdiction, which can select the cases it wants to hear. Thus, any party in a federal district court case can appeal to the Circuit Courts of Appeal as of right. Decisions of the circuit courts are published in the Federal Reporter, which is abbreviated in citations as F, F2D, or F3D, depending on the series. Under the principle of stare decisis, the circuit courts must follow precedent from the Supreme Court, and only the Supreme Court may overturn a circuit court decision. Under the same principle of stare decisis, decisions of the circuit courts are mandatory authority for the district courts within that circuit. The federal courts of appeal are divided into 13 independent divisions, or circuits. The federal circuit's jurisdiction is subject-based, hearing appeals from specific agencies and courts that deal with especially technical subjects such as intellectual property, immigration, and claims against the federal government. The D.C. Circuit hears cases that originate in Washington, D.C. Because so many federal agencies are based in Washington, the D.C. Circuit is largely focused on administrative law. The other 11 circuits are courts of general jurisdiction. Each circuit court is assigned a numbered geographical region, and they hear appeals from federal courts in the states that make up their region. For instance, the Fourth Circuit hears cases from federal courts located in Maryland, Virginia, West Virginia, North Carolina, and South Carolina. The U.S. District Courts are the federal trial courts of general jurisdiction. There is at least one federal district in each state. Some states have more than one district, depending on the volume of cases, geographical distribution, and other factors. Maryland has only one federal district, so our federal trial court is called the U.S. District Court for the District of Maryland. In a case citation, this information is presented in a parenthetical as D.MD. By contrast, New York has 4 districts. The Southern District of New York includes New York City and environs. A case arising in Albany would be heard in the Northern District. Cases that are earmarked for publication are printed in the Federal Supplement, which is abbreviated as F.Sup.2D or F.3D, depending on the series. Keep in mind that not all decisions issued by the federal district courts will become officially published cases. Judges decide which cases to publish based on whether the case adds to the jurisprudence of the jurisdiction. If a case is decided through resolution of a factual dispute or by application of well-established law, it will most likely not be designated for publication. Cases that are not earmarked for official publication are still public record, and many are now included in online databases. Be careful before you cite to these so-called unpublished decisions. Check the Blue Book for the rule in your jurisdiction. The final category of federal courts is miscellaneous courts. These are courts whose jurisdiction is defined by a specific subject. For instance, the Court of Claims handles cases where a party is suing the federal government for damages. The Court of International Trade deals with tariffs and other international trade disputes. The Court of Appeals for the Armed Forces is the appellate court for cases brought under the Uniform Code of Military Justice. And the U.S. Tax Court hears appeals of IRS decisions. The court system for the state of Maryland has a structure similar to the federal system. There are trial-level courts, an intermediate appellate court, and a final appellate court. The Maryland Court of Appeals is the highest court in Maryland. Its federal equivalent is the U.S. Supreme Court. It has discretionary jurisdiction, meaning that it may choose which cases to hear. There are a few exceptions. It must decide death penalty cases and attorney discipline cases. Decisions from the Court of Appeals are mandatory authority for all Maryland state courts. Decisions of the Court of Appeals are published in 2 reporters. Maryland Reports is the official reporter. It is published by the state and should be cited when available. Court of Appeals decisions are also published in the Atlantic Reporter, part of West National Reporter System. This is an unofficial parallel citation. Check the Blue Book for rules concerning citation. Maryland's Intermediate Appellate Court is the Court of Special Appeals. The Court of Special Appeals was established in 1966 because of the volume of cases coming before the Court of Appeals. Parties who are dissatisfied with the decision from the Circuit Court may appeal as of right to the Court of Special Appeals. If a party is dissatisfied with the decision of the Court of Special Appeals, they may file a further appeal with the Court of Appeals, but that court is under no obligation to accept the appeal. Decisions of the Court of Special Appeals are mandatory authority for district and circuit courts, but they may be overturned by the Court of Appeals. Decisions of the Court of Special Appeals are published in 2 reporters. Maryland Appellate Reports is the state's official reporter. It is published by the state and should be cited when available. Court of Special Appeals decisions are also published in the Atlantic Reporter, along with decisions from the Court of Appeals. Again, this is an unofficial parallel citation, so check the Blue Book for rules concerning citation. Maryland circuit courts are trial-level courts. They are courts of general jurisdiction, which means that they hear all cases that are not specifically assigned to district courts. The decisions of the circuit court do not have precedential value, so they are not published either in print or electronically. They are, however, public records, so they may be requested through the Clerk of Court's office. Appeals from the Circuit Court go to the Court of Special Appeals. In rare instances where a case is especially important, the Court of Appeals may choose to hear the appeal directly without first being heard by the Court of Special Appeals. Maryland's district courts handle small claims, traffic offenses, and other minor offenses. District court cases rarely result in written decisions. Appeals of district court decisions go to the Circuit Court, not to the Court of Special Appeals. This tutorial explained the structure of federal and state court systems, as well as how opinions from these courts are published. Please feel free to contact the law librarians for additional help or clarification. You can reach us via email, chat, phone, or in person at the reference desk on the 7th floor.